I say hi, Maddie, but maybe you can tell me that Maddie is just a short version. And yeah, I'm happy to have you, and I would like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself fully, and then we can dive into our little journey here.
Sounds great.
Yeah, give me a short intro.
Okay. Oh, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Maddie, short for Madison. I studied material science and engineering, and before that, I actually wanted to go into design. So we work on a lot of materials development, but we keep a lot of design at the forefront of the work that we do. And I've been working on soft flexible electronics, also known as e-textiles, for the past 10 years or so. And I'm really into the space. So that's mostly me.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for giving us an overview. What I really like to do is always trying to understand what kind of person do you need to be to build this kind of companies, kind of technologies. And here, very often, I'm asking a little bit more questions about upbringing and education. So maybe you can take us a little bit along, because I think there's so many things that happen very early on that has a huge influence on consequences when you're older and enable you to do the things that you're doing, right? So maybe you can share a bit about those days.
Yeah, definitely. I think for sure that my parents had a very big impact on where I ended up in the work that I'm doing today. My father was an aerospace engineer and he had a soldering iron in the middle of our living room. But he's also the person who taught me to sew. So he just gave me this idea of like all of the things are learnable. If you're willing to open a book, if you're willing to fail a few times, you can figure out how to make whatever you want, from upholstering a sofa to, fixing your headphones by soldering together the wires that are broken. He also, I remember going on trips to Fry's Electronics, which is now a relic. But in the US, Fry's Electronics was where you would go to like buy motherboards and speakers and assemble your own computers. And my dad loved it there, and we would just like go together and look at all the stuff. So this kind of intersection between design and engineering, where I work and spend a lot of time thinking, feels very natural, and I think that comes from just seeing it come up very naturally in someone around me. And then on the other side, my mom is a really like fiery go-getter sort of person. And so I think that I got some blend of them where it's like, we're not just going to do it, we're going to do it now, And I think that for entrepreneurship, you need a lot of things, but I think that if you're very persistent, you are less likely to fail. And so, I'm pretty persistent, and I think that that's helped us along the way.
I mean, you said that failure is part of it, right? And I think this is something that I always hope that this podcast is something to inspire people, to give people a few lessons, people that would like to do something that you guys do. And persistent is one thing that you can see as a recurring topic, as a pattern, right? But the other thing that you just said is failure and not being afraid of it. So, because how can you assume to be good at something that you haven't done before, right? I mean, it seems so obvious, but uh, just the other day I was asking a colleague if he would like to participate in posting more, right? And the post went pretty well, so he was like really hyped up. But it took him a second to adapt and to say, okay, push the publish button, and yeah, failure is part of things. So, thanks for sharing this advice very early on. Um, you already said a few things that are interesting. Bringing you to these kind of places, showing you, teaching you, and being a good role model is definitely. It seems something that made a huge impact on you. Is there something that you now try to do as well? Is that something that comes consciously, or because you have now a company, right? And is that something that you're trying to remember yourself, that this needs to be shown or this needs to be talked about, or is that you are not really paying attention and just doing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like a lot of it is just kind of doing, to be honest. It's like you kind of just, I think a lot of my attention goes towards following the breadcrumbs. It's like I want to get from A to B, but there's a bunch of little steps between, and just kind of taking it step by step to get step by step to get there. I think I'm a lot more focused on that than like explicitly trying to show something to maybe like later in my career, like that showing, mentoring, trying to grow other people sort of mentality might come up. But for now, I think it's just very much so about how do we get the business where we want it to be. And that's, what I spend most of my time on.
Mm. Coming back to the earlier days, I mean, being a space engineer, I was studying space engineering for a while after mechanical engineering. I switched later on, and so there's a lot of physics and math involved. Is that something that came easy to you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely as I got up to like, I think it was like partial differential equations, things got a little trickier, but I never had some sort of bias against, my math classes or something like that. I mean, you have to work at it like you do for anything else. Yeah, I feel like saying it came easy sounds like it was just a breeze. I don't think most things are just a breeze, but I think if you work at it, you'll do fine. And that's mostly how I did.
Hmm. Leaving high school, did you went to university?
I did, yeah. But I
Uh,
went late, which was a little unusual.
yeah. I mean, now that you're saying you mentioned this earlier, but what I want to say is the decision to make what to do and which direction to go. How is that for you, and how did you make that?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, as mentioned, I originally wanted to go into design and when I got to design school, it just kind of wasn't exactly what I wanted. It wasn't what I thought it would be somehow. And so I did a program called the Thiel Fellowship where they give you money to leave school. I left school. Um, and it started because I wanted to make a website for my design work and I didn't know how. So I took web development classes. And these web development classes were at General Assembly, this like co-working space in New York where there were a bunch of tech entrepreneurs and also they had educational programs. So I met a lot of tech entrepreneurs while I was there and I just got really inspired by what they were doing. And I was like, this is so cool. I want to learn more about this space. Um, and then, yeah, I applied for the Thiel Fellowship. I ended up getting it. And with that, I just kind of took on a lot of projects that came my way. I just kind of like built whatever somebody would pay me to build. And so I learned a lot more about hardware through that process and just kind of like making things like I did a 3D printing internship at Autodesk and I learned a bunch about like stereothography printers and my boss there was this like super cool mechanical engineer who was also really into design, but like super deep technically. And he had me work on this project, writing scripts to assign textures to the stereothography prints. It was like a really fun and interesting project. And I met all of these people when I was at Autodesk that were kind of these interesting blends of design and engineering, like super deep technical knowledge, but also like incredible craftsmanship and great thinking about user experience and product design. And I think after seeing all these people, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like I could be like these people. This is great. And that's also when I started looking more deeply into e-textiles. And so I think that deciding to actually go back to school. So I didn't finish my degree originally. I transferred my credits, which like didn't mean much in design school, to Stanford for my undergrad, and then assigned up to material science and engineering. And I think in my mind, it just all kind of made sense because I was like, oh, I'm like these people. And it didn't seem like weird or inconsistent in a way that maybe it would have if I didn't have this experience at Autodesk. So yeah, very much so just like collecting clues along the way and like using those to decide my next steps.
One of the reasons why I started this podcast is the what you just said. You see something, then you'll be inspired, and then, oh, this is also something that I could do, right? It seems so simple, but if you're not aware of this, right? If you're not have been handed this kind of menu that you can also choose and pick from, right? Then you might not being not being aware and not seeing this kind of world. It's like in a video game where as soon as you go further in which direction, then there's a little bit more light, and then you see that there's another path, right? So I really like that you said that when you tried this out, that you saw that you talked to a lot of people, you worked with a lot of people, and then you discovered what else is there, right? So This is really something I'm deeply interested in.
Yeah, I love that video game image too because I think that that's what it is. It's like you take a few steps forward, you get to see a little bit more. And I think sometimes people think that first they have to see all the way to the end before they can take any steps, but it's like you just won't see it if you don't step. Like you have to do something and then you'll find something most of the time.
Mm. After finishing, I mean, because a lot of people they're struggling with what they're gonna do, and it seems like your curiosity and your enthusiasm and excitement about things pushed you through that path, right? A lot of people struggling with what should I do? If I'm taking this one, I cannot take this one, right? Did anybody help you there, guided you there, or was that something that you discovered and made through discussions? Or yeah, maybe you can say something about this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one of the things that honestly helped the most is that I had started the company before I went back to school and I was still operating it while I was in school. So all of my class choices were directly tied to things I wanted to learn for work. So there was like a life cycle analysis class that you could take, and people were asking a lot about the sustainability of our product. And I just wasn't totally sure how to answer that question, especially in a quantifiable way. So I took this life cycle analysis class and just, used my student access to the database. And, then I took the knowledge, I shared it with the team. I was like, great, now you can do it. And we did this life cycle analysis of our product. And I was like, awesome, two birds with one stone. So almost every class I took, unless it was, just mandatory and given to me, was like, I want to learn this thing for work. So let me take this class and figure it out. And yeah, that definitely helped with figuring out what I should be doing because the answers just felt like very, very clear because of that.
As someone who went to university much later in life as well, I think it's totally right that you said if you know where to go, it's easier to go, right? It's easier to do the path, to take the classes, to take the courses and modules, and walking towards that goal, right? And having a good product, having a working product, having a good function, team and product development cycle. I think it's great that you had the opportunity and then the timing was also right to, as you said, doing the things in university that benefit you greatly, right? In um, so you said that you open up the company before you went back to school. Then you made it through school. So maybe you can walk us to how is that to have this balance, if there is any, to have a company but also going to university. How is that for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was brutal, to be honest. It was really, it was like, yeah, it was pretty bad. I would not, well, I mean, I don't know if I would recommend. It depends on where you want to go. I think that I'm I really appreciate that I got the experience, but it was not a balance by any means. It was basically, wake up, work, work all day, and then go to sleep, you know, maybe shower. It was one of those kinds of things. But I don't know, to me it was really worth it. I don't regret at all that I did it. And I also I think that it helped me get through some of the earlier harder times of the company. Those times when the company's not making a lot of money and you're like, should I really be doing this? And to me, I was like, well, I'm in school, so I'm getting paid something while I'm in school that in itself says, why not do it? I'm not like actively going into debt by doing this thing. So I might as well do it. And I think that sort of helped take a little bit of the burden off in the really early days. But yeah, it was tricky. But I also feel like sometimes you need to go through those phases. And what was your going back to school experience like?
I did 1,000 different kind of jobs, and the last one I had was yeah, I was working outside and was freezing, and I said to myself, "This cannot be the it. This cannot be the end. This cannot be it, right? There needs to be a bit more than this one." So a month later, I enrolled back to school. Um, you also said something that I like is, I mean, first you need to go through the hard things anyways, right? There's no I mean, there is obviously the opportunity to do not do hard things, but then things will be hard at some point as a consequence, right? I guess. The other thing is that I might do it. I might just do it as well because you need to do something anyways, right? Why not just doing that one? And I think this is also something that can help a lot of people. When I went back to school, I was 27. And then I thought, fuck, 3 years just to go then to university, right? Not going to university, no, first going back to school for 3 years to be able to go to university. But then I said, then I will be 30. So then I said, 30, I'm so old, but I will be 30 eventually. So there's no way around not being 30 and doing something, right? So this is why I think that what you said resonated so well with me, and I hope with others as well. You do need to do some things anyways, and you might do with this what you like or what you think that you like at this moment. And awesome. I mean, I like that you made it through and that you're doing the things that you like to do.
Yeah, we have very similar. Back when I was 26, so just about the same. And yeah, if you don't mind me asking, what made you decide not to go in the first place?
You mean me?
Yeah, you.
It seems like the podcast is doing a switch. Yeah, I mean, I think in the future I might do an episode about this, but it's mainly about what I try to discover here, what kind of menu is getting handed to you, and what kind of opportunities you know exist. I remember when I was 19, I think, I was traveling the first time on my own a bit further from Germany, and I was in a hostel with a friend, and then there were two girls, and they showed me a book, and that was The Lonely Planet. And
Mm.
then they said they have in Europe they have a travel path. So you buy a ticket for one country and then you can travel as long as you like, or for multiple countries, and then you can take the trains all the time. And that was like mind blowing. I mean, obviously, I knew that there's some books where you can travel, right? But that there's this kind of specific book for people who are not necessarily young, but young and broke and on a shoestring, right? That was mind blowing for me. I didn't realize that this kind of books for this kind of people exist, right? So I think this is one of the major themes that I'm very thankful to do the things what I'm doing today, to have the opportunity and knowing that this kind of menu exists. And now you still need to do the hard work. You still need to go through, as you said. But I think it's luck, and it's a great gift to know that this menu exists and that there's other items on
Mm.
menus that you might not have been given to, right? So I think this is what it is. Getting out of university and still having the company. How is it for you getting first customers, going from prototype to serial production to raising money, not raising money? How is that for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all I have a note in my email. Sometimes I leave notes for myself in my email that right now says like build a business, not a product, because my intuition is always to kind of work on product stuff. It's like when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When you have a problem, I'm like, maybe we need to do some product development, which is my favorite part. But you mentioned, many of the other things, such as getting customers or doing our marketing or, learning how to build a good sales funnel, which is tied to getting customers, but is different than just like spewing, pitches at whoever you meet. All of it has just been a big learning experience. And, I see like kind of each year of the business, I learn something kind of new and stretch myself a little bit more. And I definitely, I feel like now I'm kind of used to this feeling where you start a topic and you're like, I don't even know how to orient myself in this topic. Like I know so little, I can't even think about it properly. And then by the end, you know how to think about it. Like you have your opinions and your feelings and intuitions on what's proper to do. Um, and so yeah, but basically all of the things outside of product development have been just deciding to learn it, getting on top of it and pushing it through. I think a lot of startups, especially like very well-funded startups, um, generally they'll like hire someone to take on that role with the expertise, which also makes sense. So we didn't raise a lot of money and we're revenue driven. So, we eat what we kill. So I always think it's best if I learn first because then I can hire someone and actually understand and vet their skills versus just saying, you do it, and I can't assess what they're doing. I just have no judgment. I also think it's difficult to have a good relationship with the people on your team if you can't properly respect their work. And I think that it's hard to respect someone's work if you don't know what they're doing. So, like you do growth for startups, if somebody doesn't know what it takes to get 1,000 people on an email list, they might be like, this is nice, but where are the customers? And you're like, this is the first step to the customers. But it's I think like for having really good long-term relationships with the people you work with, it's really important to at least have a sense of how challenging their job is. No better way than to like do a little bit of it yourself.
Um, Maybe it's, I don't know what the reason is, but I think this is one of the first times that I hear this very well articulated. So to understand this also, so being able to reflect on this and understanding what you just said, there is some things you don't know, right? So how can you know if what the other person is doing is good or not, and how much effort it takes, right? It's just maybe it's, as you said, a very simple suggestion or very simple example, like the email list, right? It's just 1,000 people. There's the internet. You can scrape some things, right? But it would be good if the people on the list would be the right people. It would be good if there would be a reason why they're on the list in the first place, right? So, and this is just an example of thousands of examples. So it's interesting, and I don't hear a lot of founders. Maybe they do this intuitively, but this is the reason why I said you were able to articulate this very well. But you do this very consciously. Like I need to understand what this guy or this person is doing, right? When I'm hiring this, so I can judge. I know how to benchmark this. I know how to put this in context. So, yeah, well done, well done for you. I really like this one. How big is the team?
Our team is about 10 or so, so we're small.
I like small teams. I think everyone who has bigger teams, they remember on the good old times when there was a small team. So decision time. I mean, as you said, when you raise some money, you can, okay, let's hire this guy, let's hire a sales team, let's hire whoever, right? But in the very end, I like the approach of being revenue driven. Because there's your own money in it. You're not buying an espresso machine for 5K. So there was a tweet about this the other day. You think about customers. You think about problems worth solving. So it's a different approach, right? It's a different game if you're not raising this kind of money. I mean, sometimes it is necessary, arguably, especially in robotics and hardware, because if you would like to bootstrap a hardware company, it can take much longer. So 10 people, maybe, yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit about now that we left education behind and starting the company and building the company. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we make soft and flexible electronics. Our product is called the LOOMIA electronic layer. And I think a lot of people know flexible electronics to either be like a printed ink on some kind of substrate or maybe like a flex PCB. Our circuits are not printed. We use this conductive mesh. So all of our patents cover the process of making these mesh circuits. Basically, have they have some properties that you cannot always get from printing. So there are upsides and downsides, but it has a different performance profile than printing or flex PCBs. So it can be really useful for certain things on the market. And we got in touch about robotics and tactile sensing. I actually think this technique is really well suited towards tactile sensing because basically to make our components, we stack up a bunch of layers versus printing layers where it can be hard to get the kind of height that you need to measure significant deformation in some cases. So basically it allows us to do stuff that you can't do when you're printing or when you're etching. And that's why we like to go after these like really specific use cases where we think that our technology can give really strong performance.
Um, Discovering what works. We can call it product market fit, but you can call it whatever you like. So how did this happen?
Yeah, definitely. So I think this also comes back And I would say that we're still discovering. I wouldn't say that it's like perfectly in the pocket yet, but I think this comes back to something that you mentioned about being very customer driven when you're not as focused on investor requests and what they're looking for. So, at the end of the day, my customers are extremely important to me, and I need to do what my customers want me to do because they're the lifeblood of our business. We rely on them in order to operate and continue on. And also, I really like our customers. Our customers are generally engineers working on physical products. Like they have cool ideas. They run these cool tests. Like as a team, we want to serve them. And so with that, finding the industries where we can really contribute, I think comes a lot from seeing what customers will pay for it. Like it's very hard to delude yourself, I think, if you're like, we need revenue for, Q3. Someone will need to pay us in Q3. And, oh, look, it looks like everyone who's paying us in Q3 wants this application. That's very interesting. I guess that there's an opportunity here. And then we dig into the opportunity and kind of back ourselves into like the market size and what's going on there. But in terms of understanding use cases where we think we have the strongest applications, it very much so starts with the customer. If somebody's never paid me for it, I don't even think about it. And I've heard from like investors or business strategists that's kind of wrong. Like you should, explore new markets and kind of look around and build your own thesis. But to me, I'm like, if I can't get someone to even pay like 5K for a topic, why would I think that there's a market there? And that's
It seems obvious, right? It seems so obvious. Why should I work on something that no one's buying, right? Why should I not wait for someone who would like to pay me for something that I might have for him, right, or her? So, and I think this is very interesting that it seems so natural for some people, but so weird to other ones. I mean, I would not say that this is like always the case, right? There's some cases there might be where you do need to. I mean, this humanoid hype, right, that we are still in. If you go back 5 years ago, what humanoids? Right? There's no humanoids. There's no use cases. There's nothing, right? And then, so why should I explore humanoids? No one wants humanoids. I mean, it's way too far. We are not there yet. And then there's some guy dancing on the stage in a costume, right? And 5 years later we have this hype, and then we have this hype, and then we have all the components and all the consequences of that, right? That are all contributing to this idea, the idea of humanoids. And but still, for the majority of companies, I agree that you should, and it's a good filter, right? As you said, it's a good filter. Who is committed? Because when you're a startup and you're committing to some people that are not committed, then you're wasting your time and resources, and then money goes by fast. And if you, yeah, so it seems very obvious. I like that from you. How was it for you getting the first few customers? How did you manage to get the few people, the first 500 or 1,000 on the email list? What kind of
oh
things?
yeah. I don't know. I do feel like we got lucky in some of those customers. But one of our earliest customers was Airbus, and they came to visit our office, and our office was just, it was so small, we had to like borrow the central area from our neighbors so we could like fit everyone because inside of our core office there was no room, and we like, took them to lunch and we paid for lunch, but it like actually meant something to us to buy the lunch versus them, where it's like nobody cares, it's their per diem. Um, And our manufacturing partner, the president at our manufacturing partner, also was like kind enough to join this meeting. And he was like, well, let's do a project. Like, what's your budget? You guys could do something with LOOMIA. And I think their budget was like, well, I mean, their budget was, a five-figure, like, they had some budget to throw around, and we were like, amazing. And we just wrote them a proposal for their budget, and they decided to do it with us. And yeah, I like really appreciate them having the confidence, or just kind of like giving us a chance. It was very helpful. Yeah, that was one of the first ones. How did they hear about us? I think that there was a design firm who saw our product somewhere online and told them that they should consider our product for a design that the design firm made, but like couldn't realize. And it had been, we had been talking to them for a while, like we sent them samples of things. But yeah, I mean, especially like getting customers has that for us has always been this kind of zigzag path. So one of our big initiatives this year as well is like really build a good funnel, like more of a system around that customer acquisition. Because it's been a lot of like, sort of lucky moments, but that's not very, hope is not a strategy. Luck is not a strategy. So we're working on that.
Uh, no, you said something earlier in the podcast, and that was you're creating opportunities. So I think it's more about this versus luck, because to get lucky, you do need to have shots. So, and those you get by creating opportunities. So I would argue, they were taking on the risk trying it with you, but they wouldn't just I got money laying around, 5 figures, and I just give it to them. It's what you showed them and the discussions and the way you had this kind of discussions, and I think what you were able to present, I think that convinced them, or that gave them the opportunity to give you guys the opportunity, right? Because if you wouldn't be able to deliver upfront, it's corporate. They would never waste their money, right? There needs to be some sort of conviction, and you guys, it's your job to build up this conviction. Like, we don't have it yet, but we can do it. I believe that we can do it, and I make you believe that you believe me that I can do it, right? So I think this is what a lot of these work, especially with earlier customers, when the product is not there yet, right? This is your job. You're not looking specifically for clients and customers. You're looking for partners who help you level up the product. I always say this, from 85 to the 99%, right? So, awesome. Tell me a little bit more about the team dynamics. I'm trying to decipher, especially now with all the hype about small teams. How is it for you to stay small? Is that something that comes with a decision, or is that something because of the pace that you're going with the customers? Or maybe you can elaborate a little bit on this.
Yeah, of course. It sounds very glamorous to make a decision, but it's purely like revenue driven. We just don't want to get out over our skis. So we
Mm,
try and stick to what we can afford.
mm,
But we also think a lot about having people on the team very long term. Like for me, Lumia is a very long term project, and it it could take another 20 years to get where I would like it to go. And I am okay with that. I have 20 more years. So why not spend it on this thing? And I do think that you get compounding results from doing something long term. You can get really great at it, or you can understand things that others don't that give you an advantage. So to me, kind of like working on something for 30 years is exciting because those last 5 years you'll have just like all the secrets and that sounds great. It's very interesting to me to sort of have that level of like mastery or excellence at something. But with that, I also want to work with people who are looking at of course, it's a lot for someone to commit 30 years. I don't expect that, but I don't think that they're particularly appealing for somebody who's like, I'm looking to hop from IPO to IPO. It's just like not going to be us. And so, with team, I think it's hard to onboard like a lot of people and create that really long-term team dynamic. So we kind of try and especially now, like from learning over time, we hire pretty slow. We kind of like try and give people time to get used to the process and build something that they also want to do for a while so that we can all work together as a team, rather than having like really quick spin or quick turnover. So that's more of our team dynamic and philosophy.
This is funny because I very often hear the long-term vision of founders, but not realizing that, or maybe not again, not articulating or communicating that this is all based on the team, right? Because there's no good product and there's no big company without a great team. And having a background in corporate where people, every single one in my office was there for 20 years plus, 20 years, 25 years. So the thing is that what I kind of like about this hopping part is that So it has some sort of being very superficial, but that makes it easier to get along with the people because you're not building up,
Mm,
compounding the grudges that are, oh, this guy got a promotion, I not me, and he makes more money than I do, and he gets to do the things that I would like to do. This kind of things are not happening too much because the majority of people staying with the startup for 2, 3 years. So this is definitely something that I enjoy, not having this drama, soapy kind of history
yeah.
in corporate. But on the other side, something that you just said, in corporate, I met people that were working for 25 years on a washing machine. So you get a sense of expertise you cannot get in 2 or 3 years. You can't. And or people that were doing pipes, so this is the Papst of pipes. So whenever there's anything in the world happening, then they go to this guy, right? So and it's nice, and you get some sort of confidence because you have this experience, right? So it's both things, and I really like that you are aware of this. This, and you said 30 years. Is everyone aware of this? That you got to do this longer in your team?
That's funny. Now I guess it's coming out on a podcast. I don't know if I've explicitly said like 30 years or something,
No, no.
but I mean, I think everybody knows that this is like we don't talk on the team about like exit strategies or um, you know, yeah, we don't talk about like for example, we talk more about new product development, like new things we would be investing in to continue the company more so than trying to find a way out of it. So yeah, I don't know if I've explicitly said so, but it's definitely in the like in the way that we think about the work. Yeah, I also like the corporate. I think you're right too that when you work with people for a long time, you do things get very personal, and I think that it's hard to avoid that. So I think that you bring up a very nice benefit of just hopping, like, you're on a team for 2 years. It's great, it's fun. And then before the drama starts, you can kind of move on. I think that's a great thing. So yeah, I never quite thought about it, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean it is true. But again, it has some sort of benefit, right? Because if you're getting a little bit older, then you would like to have some sort of stability, and you would like to plan, right? And it's very hard to plan if you're being on a job for just for 2 years. I mean, the reason why I changed from corporate to startups is because there's more dynamic.
Mhm.
People are hungrier. They would like to work. They would like to work for 10 hours and 12 hours, and this is not something that is very sustainable for 20 or 30 years. But it is nice to like really, how do you say this, immerse yourself into something and really being there. Um, but maybe we can talk a little bit about what you guys are doing now, and what you're planning to do. Maybe we can get a bit into this when we're looking out into the future.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. So kind of like I like to split up the company timelines into different sections, and so we from you know 2014 to 2016, like I incorporated the company in 2014, but I was just doing consulting projects that kind of didn't know what it was. That was just figuring out like what to do, what to focus on. In 2016, we got our first investment, and we were focused on making e-textiles or soft and flexible electronics at scale. From 2016 to 2019, we mostly just did product development, like getting the product together, finding manufacturing partners, doing evaluation, sourcing, all of that kind of stuff. In 2019, 2020-ish, we really started getting customers on board. Fortunately, 2020 was not a great time to be doing sales. The world was falling apart. But yeah, from after COVID, like 2022, I would say is when things really started to pick up in terms of sales and revenue. And from that, basically until I would say last year, we were just doing general purpose sales. So it's like we have this platform, we'll customize it for whatever you want. Um, but especially this year, we started doing more application specific development and just like hyper targeting specific industries. And these two industries that we think our technology is best suited for is automotive interiors, which is a space we've worked in for a while, and also tactile sensing, especially for robotics. I think that you had a good point about, humanoids are kind of a hype right now. So we're, talking to a lot of the humanoid companies, but generally we're interested in like um, dexterous robots or even grippers. So generally like really good sensors for surfaces of robots that need to grip or handle or hold things. And we actually did our first tactile sensing development back in 2019 for a robotics company called Festo. We made a sensor glove for one of their robots. We didn't really know that that would come back at some point. But also over the past couple of years, we've worked with some of the tech companies on tactile sensors as well. So now we're at a point where we're like, okay, we have like a few years of experience making these sensors. Let's like really target this market and go deep on making like solving the problem the best we can. And then on the other side, we basically make heaters combined with sensors for automotive interiors. So this stage of the company is very much so like application development more so than platform development. Right, so that's all the background. Going into the future, we want to really, probably spend a few more years on perfecting these applications. So making them as cost effective as we can, having the best performance that we can, and making sure that we have all the tools around them that are needed for implementation. I think that will take us a little while. And then after that, we might go after either a new application in the medical space, or we have some new general material development ideas in the pipeline that we might put out. So it just depends on kind of where things are going, where the market is. But for now, we're like pretty committed to delivering well for these industries. And then after that, something new, something fun, we'll see what it is.
How is it for you to make this kind of decisions? I mean, you said that you are very revenue and customer driven. So is the decision-making part a bit easier because there is some data and facts that are pulling this kind of decision?
Exactly. Yeah. It's especially on automotive interior, it's just always been a customer base for us. Like when we started off doing e-textiles, we didn't think auto interior was going to be, everybody is always like, oh, medical wearables, that's what we thought we would be doing. But automotive like consistently would pay us for projects. And so I was like, okay, this is obviously a place to go. I would say that the robotics kind of the turning point for like and just to backtrack a little bit, challenge with automotive is that it's super, super slow. And so I never felt comfortable being like automotive is our application because it takes 5 years to get on a car. And, the industry just moves slow, which makes sense because a car is a potentially dangerous thing. You don't want to move too fast, in my opinion. But with that, if a customer takes 3 months to decide if they're going to move to the next phase and pay us again, I don't want to be married only to customers who move at that speed. I need also something that moves a little faster. But I wasn't sure what it was. And so robotics really emerged because we were doing a round of ICOR, like this National Science Foundation interview process that you're nodding. You just talked to like 100 people, and it came up like it was like a very emergent thing from our interviews that like this robotic space was picking up. We felt like we had customers in the past to have this be like, oh yeah, like we know what this customer is like. We kind of know what they pay. We know what they're looking for. So it wasn't totally new and out of nowhere for us. It like patterned back to something. And from the interviews, we learned that this space moves really quickly and that there's not like there are some popular players, but I wouldn't say that people feel like the problem is perfectly solved. So it just seemed like a really great opportunity. And it filled in this gap of wanting something that's maybe like a little bit faster moving to balance out the automotive side of things.
Mm.
And so after this round of interviews, it just felt really obvious that we needed to be going after this. And as a team, we decided to put out this developer kit just to like get ourselves in the market. Where it's like we are here, we make solutions, and keep us in mind when you're building something. So that's sort of the progress to getting to where we are today around these two industries.
So again, creating opportunities.
Yeah, I guess so. The developer kit that we have for sale, of course, we'd like to sell it, but it's an opportunity creation tool. I think that's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
I mean, it's always easier with software, right? When you because there's a lot of people in my industry that is doing growth when it comes to developer developer growth, developer communication, developer community building. Um, you need to give them something to play with, right? And then if they like it, they can build things upon it, right? So you build the base, and then if there's some people that love you, they might reach out, or maybe later on you can sell to them. So there's a reason why I said, yeah, I mean, you're creating opportunities that might not be just around the corner, but they might be popping up in the future. I do this sometimes, and not very sure if this helps or not. But if you could go back and tell Maddie from 10 years ago what to maybe trying to avoid, what would that be? Or do you think unfortunately, you do
Mm.
need to make this kind of experiences on your own because no textbook, no podcast will help you here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, it's hard because I would want to say have more confidence in your decisions because I feel like I wasted a lot of time just sort of ruminating or trying to gather like trying to gather buy-in from other people around, especially like business strategic decisions that I wanted to make. But I also don't know if I have more confidence in my decisions now because I just like fell on my face over and over again. And like I officially kind of know how to not totally fall every time. Like I'm not sure if it's something like kind of like you were saying that would be good advice, or if it's just something that you have to like learn your way into. Um,
What would be an
yeah, I
advice
don't
too,
know.
right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like this is the process could be. I also think advice can be tricky because I don't know how the story ends, right? It's like in if I get to live out this 30-year vision and like Lumia is doing great and I'm like, we built stuff, it was fun, so pleased. And my advice would be like, don't change a thing. If something goes terribly wrong and we have to, God forbid, close the company next year, then I think I'd go back to myself and say, like, do something else. It's so like story dependent and so dependent on how things work out in the end. What would be your advice? What would you tell yourself 10 years ago?
Like I said, it seems like this is a reverse podcast. But I mean, I like your curiosity. I do think that being less afraid of failure is definitely something that I would also give myself an advice, right? That failure is part of the process, and that you can only get better at things if you try over and over again, right? And I mean, as you said, we are continue will make mistakes. But maybe that can take, you said this phrase earlier on, take a little bit of weight off the shoulder, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're aware of this, and I mean, I have a little one now, so I have this podcast also to understand what kind of things are maybe I need try to avoid, and what are the things that I need try to teach, and what I hear very often over and over again, the pattern is supporting and being curious and exploring things. And I think here is definitely this is definitely something that I would be enforcing. Uh, I'm very happy that you said yes to our little podcast, and I'm very curious to see where things are going for you guys within the next 20 years. Let's see how long this podcast will last. I hope for a very long period of time. People ask me why I do this. What is the goal for it? I mean, the goal is to have this kind of a conversation to take a little bit away from to learn a little bit about. I mean, apparently about myself too. So I really like the idea of connecting with people and exploring things. So thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that we can do this podcast again in 20 years. I'm waiting for it.
That sounds like a long-term goal, but yeah, why not?
Yes, long-term goal.
Because every now and then I ask, maybe we can do a podcast in a year or two so we can see where your company is. Because I talk to a lot of founders, right? And I mean, just a few weeks ago, I had Benjamin Bolt from K-Scale Labs, and about a year
Cool.
ago, I had one of his co-founders, so that was Matt. And yeah, I mean, they just launched their humanoid, their full printable three. I mean, yeah, humanoid that you can open source humanoid, and it's a huge success. And seeing from the garage project where it started to now having a product, it's a great journey.
That's awesome.
Mm.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that you have such a nice bird's eye view to what's happening in this new industry. And I mean, it's a really special thing, I think, to see something from beginning to launch, especially in hardware. It normally is so much slower. It's very cool.
Mm. Again, thanks for taking the time. Looking forward to your dev kit, and talk to you soon, I guess.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for the time. Take care.
Bye.